What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're gonna jump in with some Destiny 2 news, and this comes in the form of This Week at Bungie. Of course, just the second weekly update inside of 2019, and we've got some interesting stuff to break down. Firstly, we have some words from Luke Smith about the future of the franchise. Definitely an interesting statement right here. Could give us a hint towards how the rest of Destiny 2's content could run out over the next few months. So we're going to break that down. On top of this though, we're also going to talk about update 2.1.4. This is going to be the update coming in late January. Bungie talk about sandbox changes, exotic weapon buffs and nerfs, as well as changes to different weapon archetypes, and we've got a bunch of different quality of life changes, specifically for some of the stuff in the annual pass right now. Then as always, we have known issues, things that Bungie are working towards fixing, some words about the world first for Niobe Labs, and a couple of other things. So guys, as always, I hope you enjoyed this video, but without further delay, let's get straight into it. So we have a fresh This Week at Bungie, and firstly, Luke Smith decides to jump in, give us a few words about the recent news. Of course, Bungie and Activision have split, so Bungie will be self-publishing Destiny moving forward, and obviously this is going to have an influence on the game, and there's been a lot of speculation about what it could mean for Destiny and the content that we're going to get, especially over the next year or so. So Bungie say, before we dive into the weekly roundup of information about the game, we'd like to shed some more light on the future of the franchise. So Luke Smith says, I wanted to share 3 things on behalf of the Destiny team today. First, our sincere thanks to the people at Activision who've helped bring Destiny to our players, High Moon Studios for their wonderful collaboration on Forsaken, and Vicarious Visions who helped establish a Destiny community on PC, worked with us on Warmind, and is currently readying their Destiny Swansong with content that will appear in the upcoming season of Redacted. He says next, in the short term, we're continuing to build the content we've promised for the annual pass. We've learned a lot from Black Armory that will apply to future releases, most notably that we'd like the beginning experiences of content drops to be a better point of convergence for the player base. In Black Armory, we set the power requirement for the first forge too high, and it meant it wasn't a great chance to jump into some new content. We want to find the line between new content that many players can play and aspirational content for players to progress forward, and we're exploring improvements to catch up mechanics for players in upcoming seasons. And he says lastly, long term, Bungie is committed to Destiny. We created the universe and we hold its future entirely in our hands. The vast majority of the team is hard at work envisioning future experiences, enemies, and ways to play the Guardian you've been building since 2014. We're going to keep doing that. We're thinking about what it means to be truly independent, what it means to self-publish, and crucially, what Destiny's future can look like for our players. It was a busy fall, and it's going to be a busy year. When I look ahead and think about Destiny and where it could go, I see a bright future, with roots in a memorable past. Not everything has been lost in the dark corners of time. See you soon, Luke. So there we go. That's the first time we've really heard from Luke Smith in a little while. So it's definitely good to establish that Luke Smith is very much present. Obviously, we do get full confirmation that High Moon Studios, as well as Vicarious Visions, will no longer be working on Destiny beyond the annual pass content at the very least. They do hint that Vicarious Visions are working on the season of Redacted stuff, which essentially is the final season that we've got on the roadmap. But Luke Smith does describe that as their swan song. So I think it's definitely a shame to say goodbye to these other studios, and obviously that does mean new challenges for Bungie. And obviously Bungie talk about the short term and continuing to build the content we've promised for annual pass. And essentially for now, that's all they're really willing to tell us about the future in terms of actual content. He does convey that Bungie are still committed to Destiny and are going to work towards future content, future releases. And I guess we're going to have to wait a little while to see exactly what form they'll take. So let me know your thoughts about that down below, guys. As we've spoken about a lot recently, it's a very interesting time for the franchise. But now, let's talk about the update coming at the end of January. This will be update 2.1.4. And of course, we've heard about a few different changes that will be coming into the game, but Bungie say their objectives are to buff underutilized weapon archetypes, adjust hot button weapons in PvP, including Telesto and Wave Splitter, and avoid PvP adjustments that will negatively affect PvE efficiency. So firstly, we do have some changes to weapon archetypes for auto rifles. They've increased the damage for rapid fire, adaptive, and high impact families, and we find that auto rifles are a little unforgiving for the ranges they ask you to occupy in a world with special weapons, and as a result, we're increasing the damage to offset the higher risk. So there will be a general buff to a whole bunch of archetypes of auto rifle. On top of this though, scout rifle damage is being increased for lightweight and rapid fire families, as well as an increase to all scout rifles in PvE. So specific changes for the lightweight and rapid fire frame class, but then also a general damage buff for PvE content. Scout rifles are always going to be on the lower end of damage due to the safety that their range affords you, but the differences currently between them and other primary weapons are too drastic. As a result, we're reducing the size of the gap. Finally, for sniper rifles, they've increased the damage on rapid fire archetypes to be able to kill in 2 body shots. Although snipers are still finding success, we believe that allowing you to clean up easier with a sniper rifle will allow the sniper to have that success at more ranges and in more situations. and obviously that speaks more specifically to PvP, so some legendary changes and some archetype changes in general, but we do also have some exotic changes. So first up, Legend of Acreus. They're increasing the damage, and they say as time moves on, things tend to trend upward in terms of power, and in a post-Forsaken world, Acreus simply didn't have the output to match other heavy weapon exotics. So more damage and more range on the Acreus, that's definitely going to be very interesting. Promising for PvE especially. Now Telesto though, everyone's favourite in the Crucible, they say PvP damage has been brought down to match a standard fusion rifle charge rate, and the optics or zoom has also been increased to match fusion rifles with long-range scopes. Telesto has become fairly notorious in the Crucible for its effectiveness, even in some cases getting accidental multi-kills due to how damaging the explosions were. To combat these, we've reduced its PvP damage to match its charge rate, and this brought up an issue where doing so was significantly hurting the usability of the weapon, so the optics were buffed in return. In general, you should still find it an effective weapon, it just won't be quite as generous as it was before, so that'll be interesting to try in the game. But then we have changes to scout rifles as well as Wave Splitter. So they've increased the minimum amount of ammo that you can receive from a special ammo box for trace rifles. Trace rifles had a pretty rough time keeping ammo reserves in the Crucible, as it doesn't have access to scavenger perks, and there should be more success using this archetype more often in Crucible, and the changes also of course affect PvE bricks. But they do say they have reduced the strength of Wave Splitter in PvP after the ammo changes noted above. Wave Splitter had its one weakness removed, so we've opted to bring it in line with other trace rifles before this patch hit the public. So those are the major changes that'll come for weapons. Bungie do say that some topics we're looking at for future adjustments include trace rifle damage in PvE, submachine gun damage adjustments, shotgun adjustments, and taking a holistic look at the heavy slot options and how much of an impact it has on loadout choices for PvE content. So those are some additional changes that we'll see in update 2.1.4. Of course, we have heard from Bungie about other subclass buffs, some changes to older subclasses in the game, as well as a couple of nerfs here and there. I'll link a video with the details about that one down below if you want to check it out, but this update should arrive on January 29th, which is also the same date as we'll get the last word quest in the game. So a few different things to mix up PvP right there, especially once folks get their hands on that new exotic. Either way, let me know your thoughts about these changes down below. Up next though, Bungie say Sandbox won't be the only aspect of Destiny 2 receiving quality of life changes in the next update. We've also spent some time collecting player feedback on Black Armory experiences. What follows are some details for the changes we have planned for weapon forging. So firstly, ballistics logs will no longer be removed at reset, so that's definitely good. You can actually hold on to them over a weekly reset. They do say the stack limit for ballistics logs has been increased to 5 per character, so you can hold on to 5 of those, and of course these enable you to actually collect the powerful weapon frames each week, so that's definitely a good improvement. They're changing weapon frames carrying between resets, so they say frames carried across reset now refund into the following. So gold frames are refunded into 1 ballistic log, silver frames are refunded into 3 modulus reports, any instance of radiant matrix will be removed on weekly reset, and players should stop experiencing the issue where frames are missing from Ada's inventory on a week-to-week basis. On top of this, players may still only purchase up to 2 gold frames per week. So basically, if you hold a frame over reset, it's going to be broken down, and that should resolve some of the bugs and issues with those actually being carried over weekly resets. On top of this though, for Black Armory lore pages, they say the drop rate has been increased from 10% to 20%. It now requires a successful forge ignition for a chance to drop, so no more farming those AFK. They also say the quest step that requires players to defeat a high-value target on Nessus no longer requires a player to land the final blow. I believe that's for the Izanami Forge quest. On top of this, modulus reports and ballistics logs will go to the postmaster if lost. A cap on modulus reports will still be at 15 per account. But forge emblems will be awarded when completing a forge and no longer require a specific bounty to be completed. They say this is not even the final form of the next deployment. Check out the player support report for a list of known issues being addressed in 2.1.4, so that's a pretty good bunch of changes there. Of course, there are other things that the community would like to see when it comes to forges and how we go through that process, but I think in terms of basic quality of life, these are definitely good changes going forward. Let me know your thoughts about them down below. There is some stuff in the This Week at Bungie article about how they're rearranging the forums on Bungie.net, so if you're curious about that and you want to read into it, then I'll link Bungie's blog post down below. But next, they do have the player support report. So, in update 2.1.4, that's the update coming on the 29th, they've resolved issues inside of this list. So, lost radiant matrices, players can become blocked from accessing Black Armory activities if the matrix is pushed out of their postmaster. No longer will Ada have missing weapon frames, and that's because of the ballistics log changes above. There has been an issue with mysterious box forge keys sometimes not applying when used to the mysterious box, so that's being fixed. The fastidious Miser Triumph inside of Dreaming City, I believe. That one's being fixed. Essentially, that's the triumph to open all of the chests in Dreaming City. Players should be rewarded with that progress now. Other issues with weapon frames. that captain on Nessus, a problem where Redrix's broadsword was sometimes not granted on completing the quest, and the knife flip emote will now loop continuously instead of stopping after one loop. So once again, all of those changes coming on January 29th. There are a few additional things that they list as known issues. Once again, you can check those out if you're experiencing any problems. I'll link the blog post below. There's also Movie of the Week to check out. But in terms of community achievements, Bungie say, to close out, we invite you to take a step back to Friday, January 11th, 2019. Guardians have been working together to solve the puzzles in Niobe Labs. A final clue was given to nudge players in the right direction. After 3.5 days, the hubris of Niobe was recognized, and the puzzle was completed. And they say, world first, the Destiny community. While a fire team executed the plan, we wanted to highlight that this was achieved by more than just 3 Guardians. We thank everyone in the community who lent their troubleshooting skills to help crack this code. Many shoutouts to raid secrets were made, but we must also acknowledge those who engaged with each other via social media. Whether you were on the forums, tweeting, texting, or submitting your theories into stream chats, thank you for taking part in this experience. So there we go, guys, and of course, Niobe Labs definitely was a community achievement overall. In fact, it'd be pretty hard at this point to track who actually solved all of the individual parts, which I think in its own way is pretty interesting. It's cool that many people were able to input, and ultimately were able to uncover something pretty complicated in Niobe Labs, which is pretty awesome. So guys, let me know your thoughts about the changes we're getting in the updates coming at the end of the month. Some of the sandbox stuff sounds good, definitely very positive quality of life changes, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about what Luke Smith said about the future of the franchise as well. But for today, guys, that is going to summarize the video, so if you have enjoyed it, a like is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe to see a lot more D2 content. But for now, thanks as always for tuning in. Whatever you get up to, I'll catch you very soon.